I've spoken to so many women who have faced seemingly insurmountable challenges in their personal life, in their career, and in their business. But two things stood out. One, they came out on top. And two, they did it while they were afraid. And guess what? They are not an exclusive. They are all around you. My job through the Spotlight series is to bring the stories of these women closer to you. Welcome to another episode of the Women Do It Afraid Spotlight series, and I have in the house Ekene Onu. Yay! A wise woman, a soul teacher, a purpose catalyst. And who is this? Ekene Onu, who is my guest on this episode of the Spotlight series. She is UN Women Empower Women Global Champion 2016. She's a pharmacist with over 2 decades of experience. She is a certified professional and emotional intelligence coach. She is an organizational and change leadership expert and also a published author and sought after motivational speaker. She started her working career as a pharmacist and practiced for close to 2 decades before she started Refresh with Ekene, which is a consulting and a coaching company in response to the need that she saw with the professional and high-achieving women who came to her pharmacy every day to get prescriptions for high blood pressure, insomnia, or depression and other challenges. She also felt a need to shift in her own life, and she went through her own personal journey and has transformed her career path, her health state, and her way of living. And now she travels the country teaching, training, speaking, creating amazing, beautiful experiences for women to get refreshed. She's also the founder of Refresh Leadership Circle. I'm excited that she's on today. You should be as well. Enjoy this portion of the Spotlight series interview. I'm so excited about this interview, and I hope that you stay and watch to the very end, because I'm going to be asking this phenomenal woman so many questions about her business, about who she is, and how she always stays glowing every single time. That's a secret that you have to tell us.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yes.
All right.
All right, so for starters, for those who don't know who she is, can you just start by introducing yourself, please?
So my name is Ekene Onu, as Stella has so nicely put it. I am a leadership and executive coach, and I run a consultancy, a boutique consultancy focused on professional and leadership development called Refresh with Ekene. And then I'm also the founder of the Refresh Leadership Circle, which is a coaching community for women who are high achieving, high potential, but who really want to be purposeful about their pursuit of soulful success.
So high achieving and high performing.
High performing, high potential, wherever you are on that spectrum.
Okay.
So helping you really capture the things that you need, because you know, the thing about success is it's not just about what you do, it's about how you are, the kind of person that how you be, so to speak, right?
Okay.
So I've helped women focus on the being part of it.
Not just the doing part.
Not just the doing, so the mindset and thinking strategically, systems thinking, so a lot of those things.
So talk about soulful success, right? Because I've read some things that say about success and fulfillment. So how do you separate both those?
Sorry, I just had a moment. I had a vanity moment. It's okay, you don't have to edit it out because it's real. This is real. We're keeping it real.
Yes, sure.
I had broken nail. I was like, oh my god, I just exposed the nail.
We won't edit this part out.
No, it's real.
Absolutely real here. So success and fulfillment. So in as much as these women are high achieving and purpose and everything, fulfillment and all that, what about the fulfillment part of it? Because if you're helping them with their being and not just the doing, how do they stay fulfilled? Because I believe not all success is fulfilling, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, that's why I call it soulful success. Because to me, I look at success a couple of ways. We typically look at success one-dimensional, two-dimensional success is what I call it, right? Where you're successful on paper, you look great on paper, but really deep down inside, like you said, you're not fulfilled. Mm-hmm. So to me, that's soulless success. Or you have the kind of success that you're doing everything you need to do, what you've been told to do, but at the end of the day, it actually costs you. So it's costing your relationship, it's costing you your health, and that's what I call toxic success. So a lot of times we have this soulless success, And what I try to do is teach women the concepts to create a life where they can be successful on their own terms, but also not, lose your soul. You know that scripture? Yeah, that says, for what does it profit a man to gain the world but lose his soul? And we always think about that in terms of eternity.
Right.
But I believe that we're meant to look at it on this side of the eternity as well. Yeah. Like, what kind of life are you actually living? Because a lot of us are living, we're not even living. We're actually dead, we're just still alive. And this is really a critical question, and I've lived that life. I know it. So it's one of the reasons why I entered into this kind of work.
Okay, so why refresh? So that's your trademark. Refresh. Why refresh?
So like I said, I lived that life. So before I did this, refresh is about technically 5 years old, and I'll tell you more about why I say technically. But before that, I was a pharmacist. I was a practicing pharmacist for almost 16 years, actually more than 16 years, right? And, so again, like I said, on paper, looked good. I was making 6 figures, I checked all the boxes. Married, check. Child, check. Owned a home, check. All the
American dream.
American dream. And then I discovered that the dream was not working for me. I was actually having nightmares. And, so I know exactly what that means to not be fulfilled and be kind of broken, and this idea of walking around and be feeling depressed and it was also, and this is what I find a lot of women feel as well, especially when you've done those things you're supposed to do and on paper it looks good. There's shame attached to the way you feel, and you can't share it with other people because no one understands what you're talking about. Like, how was your problem? You have everything, but deep down inside you don't feel good. And so for me, I was just in this really state of brokenness. And for me, there were other things, I was doing other things to kind of self-medicate the lack of fulfillment, right? And so one, I have a dysfunctional relationship with bread. I'm still praying about it. I'm still, if you know a deliverance minister, send him my way. I'm still in that state. But I'm working through it. I'm in a better place with that. Right, it's still a journey, but that was my big way of handling it. A lot of women have different ways. Some of them overshop, or some people drink, and some people over socialize. All of those types of things. So sometimes we tend to self-medicate away our challenges. So I was like that, and there was a season when I had to stop. I feel like it was as if the bottom fell out of my life. Like everything, it was glaring to me that everything was wrong. Like all the issues, all the different components of my life, every single thing had come to a place where I was like, something has to change.
Right.
And if something doesn't change, I don't know if I can make it. So I decided then to take a leave of absence from work.
Okay.
So I took 6 weeks initially, then I took another 6 weeks, right, off. I utilized all the leave of FMLA type of thing. Took that time off, and during that time, at first, all I wanted to do was just take care of myself. And, so first started sleeping, eating, being mindful about what I was eating, working out. Actually, before all of that, I started by praying, because I was really unhappy. And there was a night I was praying, and actually this was the genesis of it all. I was praying, and I say it's not really praying, I was praying. When you're praying and wailing. And I was crying and carrying on and all of this drama, like around 1 o'clock at night. And thank God nobody was home. My husband had traveled, it was just me. And so me and the Holy Spirit. And the Holy Spirit said to me, what's all this drama? Like, if you want to waste water, go and sweat. And so right then at 2 o'clock at night, at 2 o'clock in the morning, I went downstairs and I did a Taibo tape. I exercised for 1 hour. And I realized I felt better. Even though nothing in my life had changed, I felt better. So I started making it a promise to myself to exercise every day. And then I started being a little bit more mindful about what I was eating. And then I started sleeping. So everything was like, and then I was journaling all of these things. And I realized, gosh, this business of self-care is there's a practicality to it, connecting to feeling good. And so I would start going places and people were like, what are you doing? You look refreshed. And they would continue to say that, and then it hit me one day. I said, women need to be refreshed. And so before I incorporated my company or anything, 2011 was the first thing I ever did. And I didn't know, I wasn't a coach, I didn't know what I was going to do. I just knew that what I was experiencing, I wanted other women to experience it too, and that they needed it as well. And so I decided I was going to hold my first event, and I announced it on Facebook. I said, we're going to hold a conference, 2011, right, in 6 weeks. I didn't know anything about planning a conference. You plan a conference, so you know that's like a little bit of madness.
Yes, it is.
Right? But thank God for God. You know, He pities babies and fools. So, you know, we planned the conference in 6 weeks. Well, I announced it, and because I announced it, it was going to come to pass. Yeah. And essentially, and I called it Refresh. I still have the poster, Refresh 2011. And women came in, and I had women come in. I had speakers. I was still booking speakers even the day of
the event.
Can you believe that? Like, are you coming? Of course, because I wasn't paying speakers.
Yeah.
So, you know, I had to call in a few favors here and there. So I had people come and talk to us about wellness. I had them talk to us about fashion. I had them, I had a sexy dance class. And we had 45 women there that day.
Wow.
And they had a ball. And the whole time they were there, all they were saying was, when are we having this next? When is this going to happen next? And that was the beginning, and I just kept, you know, what do they say? Rinse and repeat. They say rinse and repeat. So I just kept rinsing and repeating for a bit until I figured out, oh, okay, I want to do this.
Okay.
And then I went back to school, and I studied organization and change leadership and consulting, and then I got certified as a coach, among other, you know, so I did a couple of things, got certified in emotional intelligence, and started another level of the work. But initially, it was just, this helped me.
I wanted to help other people.
Yeah.
So my question would be, what is that gap? Like, why would people have everything technically, but still have nothing? Do you get what I mean? They think about thinking the American dream. Everybody have the house, the husband, the kids, the job. So what is that thing missing?
Well, I think because we're encouraged to go after the circumstances or the trappings of that successful life, without looking at the soul of that successful life. The reason why I use the word soulful all the time is because, you know, Jim Rohn says that success is not something that you chase. That if you chase it, it can be like butterflies. But success is something you attract by the person that you become. And I found that to be really true, that true success, that soulful success that we're talking about. We are encouraged to go out at it the opposite way.
Okay.
So we're told this is what success looks like.
We get it.
And go on, you know, it's like a paint by numbers. Just paint. But then painting by numbers never gives you a masterpiece, does it?
No.
It is people that have really connected to the creativity within their souls that can create a masterpiece. And so when we paint by numbers, what we're told to do, and we invest so much in it.
Lose ourselves in the process, right?
You know, or you've invested so much that, you know, I read somewhere, don't keep making a mistake because you spent so much time making it. So some of us, because we've spent so much energy into it, so much time, so much of our resources, we're like, well, this is it, you know. So it's, and even though you know it's the wrong path, because for me, for example, graduating college, I knew that I didn't want to be a pharmacist, even as I graduated. And I was supposed to go do my master's. I had actually gotten accepted. I was going to go to Johns Hopkins. I was going to do public health. But then when it came time, I applied for a fellowship. And the fellowship fell through. So when it came time to actually go and then sign another loan for $60,000 a year again, I hadn't finished paying off the first one. I balked. I said, I can't do that. And so I said, as a stopgap, that I would just go, I would take my licensing exam and practice pharmacy for just a few years. And a few years turned into 16
years.
And a lot of people get stuck in that. So I knew right from there, this is the difference between operating in fear, do it afraid, versus operating out of faith. The truth was that at 22, I could have taken a risk.
Right.
Whether it be sign loans or not, or maybe do something different, I could have taken risks at 22. Risks that are harder for me to take now that I have children and all this other stuff. But because I was afraid, you know, so I chose the
safe option.
The safe option, and you know, or the practical option.
Right.
My mom was like, be practical, and I said, but sometimes being practical can doom you to be mediocre. You know,
being practical can doom you to be mediocre.
Girl, that's a tweet.
Yes.
Right? Yes. Yes.
Oh wow. Okay, and then your faith. Think about when you were praying, and you and the Holy Spirit. Your faith is really important to you. You're absolutely not even scared to. You don't shy away from bringing it out.
Yeah.
Talking about it, even at your sessions and at your events as well. And in this world that we're in, where there's always that thin line, so how much should I talk about God and how much should I involve God in my business? How do you balance it? How do you not turn out to preaching, in as much as you know that your faith is your anchor? So what do you do?
So I think it depends on how you approach faith. So for me, it's interesting because a lot of my clients are not people they don't share my faith. So I have a lot of Muslim clients who, clearly I'm Christian, they're Muslim, but they appreciate my authenticity and my, just the truth of how I live my life. So, and I have a lot of secular clients that, again, it is what it is. Now, I think the difference is that I don't wear my faith as a coat. It is very much my core. So I think, I'm a very authentic person, at least I try to be. I'm fairly transparent to some degree. It is who I am. And so it's not about pushing it on people. Mm-hmm. It really is, it's the same way you would appreciate, it's the way I would offer you jollof rice because I'm eating jollof rice.
Right.
It's not, if you choose not to accept it, it's okay. Because I think the challenge with faith and the way people have experienced other people with faith is that a lot of people use it as a moral superiority. So to them, I'm this, and this makes me better. And so that energy is offensive. And that's why, people then have to figure out how to balance it. But when you approach it, so like, for example, if I'm doing a class, and I've had people like business coaches and say, oh no, don't ever talk about faith. And so for me, it is the way I handle my things. But I'm not preaching at you. I'm sharing what I understand to be wisdom. And I'll often say, please permit me, I know that not everyone shares my faith, but permit me to speak in the language that I'm accustomed to.
Right.
Because that's really what it is. It's the same way, like, I can't stop being Ekene.
That's who you are.
That's who I am. And it's not, my Ekene doesn't stop you from being Sophia or Mary or being from Greece or wherever. I appreciate that in you. And I think that's the thing too. I actually appreciate other people and their choices. And I make room for that. My faith is not exclusive. Mm-hmm. It's inclusive.
Okay. Interesting. And you mentioned something about you're authentic. That's that thing, that a word that's really, really similar, paramount to your buzzword, yeah. Well, as a woman, how do you stay authentic if you have to keep evolving? What I mean by that, because just like when you go from a certain stage or phase in your life to another phase in your life, so someone at 20s might be, maybe quiet, trying to figure out exactly who she is, and I know at 25 she has to change. So how do you still remain your core if you have to keep evolving to become a better person?
I think authenticity ultimately is about truth. And as long as you're truthful, so if I'm questioning, I'm open about that. If I am growing, I'm open about that. I think the challenge is that a lot of times we feel as if we have to put on a persona in order to be successful. But one of the biggest wins, I think, for me, when I understood this, and what I teach 100% is that you have the ability, and I say it a lot, not only the ability, it's actually what you are. You are both a masterpiece and a work in progress. And so you are both evolving and you're both already fully formed. You're significant and you're insignificant. I think the human condition is really this ability to it's this contradiction and this dichotomy. And when you actually can embody that, you're actually the most interesting person. The people that can really embody that, they're not trying to be, because I think when people struggle with inauthenticity is when they're trying to be rigid and fit into, like, I want to be okay, I want you to be accepting of me. But when you accept yourself, and most importantly for me, I feel every day, I connect to this truth that I am loved by the Most High, just as I am, in my imperfections, in my failures, in my confusion, in my amazingness, in my magic, in my beauty, whatever. Both he loves me when I get up, he loves me when I fall down, he loves me when I struggle with bread. You know what I mean? All of it. That allows me to always, authenticity is showing up as your true self, whatever that looks like, and being accepting of that. So I think, to your question, is it's really for you as a woman to make peace with the fact that you are always evolving, to make peace with that.
But how does that affect or translate to business? Because in business, it's like people want to have a certain brand, and if they keep evolving, they probably have that fear that their message or their brand voice will keep changing.
Well, I think your core doesn't change, right? So brands evolve all the time. So think about, I was just watching Burlington Coat Factory ads. They were initially primarily coats, now they're wearing less coats and more everything else. So they've rebranded from Burlington Coat Factory to just Burlington, right? So brands are constantly evolving. They're constantly rebranding because, of course, you have to be sensitive to the market and what's happening in the world. If you don't evolve, you die. Right? So there's always this evolution happening, but you are true to your core. So when you understand what your core is, because I've evolved over time, but my core is still serving women and helping them live their best lives, whatever that looks like.
I was about to ask you what your core is. But
that is my at the core of my business, that is.
Okay. Yeah. Alright, so you left your 16 years pharmacist job with a 6-figure salary to jump into helping women live their best lives. Like, what was going through your mind? Because I know that for a lot of women, it's hard because of responsibilities, kids, and every other thing. Like, did you have a plan B, basically? Did you have a strategy in place to help you just in case, it didn't work out?
So I didn't have a plan B, and I didn't do it the way that I recommend doing it. But I think perhaps that was the only way I would have done it. Like I was that person that had to be at the end of their rope. There's some people that have to be pushed before, so life essentially pushed me. But what I recommend is having those strategies in place. So a couple of things that I would have done if I thought it through, right? And this is why I encourage people, no matter where you are, to really think about what is my vision, what do I desire, what are my hopes, what are my dreams, right? Before you leave your job and your salary, not after that, right? To think about what it is you want and start being strategic. One, yes, put money away, because as an entrepreneur, it will take time before you start to earn. For most businesses, now a lot of people do earn right away, and you hear all these great stories online.
Right.
Let me help you understand one thing that I've come to discover. Not every story you hear online is true. A lot of people just straight lie. Every I had a 5-figure month, might have been the 1 month in the 3 years. They don't tell you all of that. So, but what I've seen consistently, people who stay in the game for a while, they have to plan to weather the storms. And there's a season where, they call it in the red and in the black for a reason. It takes some time to get into the black, to be profitable. Even businesses that have large large capital behind them. So one, put your money aside. This is when you stop, and not everyone does this, but you start deciding what's frivolous and what's not frivolous, and you start saving accordingly. So that's one thing I would have done. The second thing I would have done while I was at work was maximize the things that were available to me. So for example, I could have gone back to school on my company's dime.
Right.
I didn't do that. We paid out of pocket, right? But most of us have tuition reimbursement. Even if I couldn't have gone back to Georgetown, which I did, but I could have gotten some of my certifications probably while still working. Yeah, I could have done that. I could have also built a professional network. I could have been more intentional, because the things that you need to put in place are not just the money, but also the connections, the doors opening. I could have tested the water a little bit more. So once you have some understanding, and I think what holds a lot of people back is they're waiting to find out the perfect step. Just figure out the next best step, and while you have a safety net, start trying. That way, because you're going to fail a lot of times before you win, but you have that thing to protect you while you're failing. and you're building your boat so that when you're now ready, because I have friends who have done these strategies and launched into entrepreneurship, and their launch and my launch are very different. You know, because the launch, because it always sounds, it's a very sexy story. Oh, I just quit, or whatever, right? That's a sexy story, but a lot of people don't survive that. And for me, all I can say is literally the grace of God and a supportive spouse, a supportive family that has been there for me during this season. You know, like now things are picking up, things are going well, but there was a time and I wasn't sure what I didn't even know. Like I tell people, and like I said, technically 5 years, right?
Right, yeah.
And I always say technically 5 years because for the first 2 years, it was like a hobby, right? Because I wasn't really, I wasn't focused on money. I wasn't focused on my numbers. Then it became a hustle because I may have started to become more money conscious, but I didn't have systems.
Okay.
And only recently did it become more of a business where I have systems in place. I have teams. I have, you know, I have a funnel. I have, you know, so it's not just every day you're like, how is money going to come today? So there's a process, and my learning curve is steep. And so a lot of people, if you're not a natural entrepreneur, your learning curve will be steep. And so it helps when you start. Even for my kids, I tell them start now.
Right.
Start now. While you're, I have a 21-year-old. I'm like, start now. While you're home, while you're in college. Because you can fail gloriously. The more you fail gloriously, the more you set yourself up to actually win magnificently.
Right.
So, you know, I think it's start as soon as you can and start small, think big, put as much away as you can, get social capital, financial capital, even emotional capital, even physical capital, because the business of entrepreneurship is not for the faint of heart. Physically, you will be exhausted.
Right.
So you need to have self-care strategies in place, otherwise you won't make it.
Absolutely. I'm so happy that you mentioned two things about so many times you see online, you know, someone say I quit my 9 to 5 and I started earning maybe 5K per month and things like that. And we actually think, you know, wow, how is this person doing? But you just said something about that 5K could have been maybe once in like 2 years, you know, and maybe they had other things in, maybe they had other strategies or a plan B, but they don't share that out with us. That's why I really like, you know, this spotlight too, because I speak to women who really bear it out and say it as it is without any front, so that other people who are listening to can be like, okay, if you can do it, this is what she did, this is what she went through, then I can as well. Alright, so my next question will be fear. What does fear mean to you?
Well, fear is two things, right? So fear is both, even just the word fear is a noun and a verb. So fear is something you can have, but it's also something you can do, right? So do not fear, because you can do it, you can do fear. But fear as in something we all have fear. It happens, it's an emotion, and it's a heightened emotion that can then impair your decision-making abilities. It can block your blessings, and it can be very dangerous. But fear is also data. So when you're fearful about something, it's giving you information. So the having fear to me is not the biggest issue, it's the doing fear that's the biggest issue. And if you notice, even, so again, let me refer back to the word, back to the Bible. In the Bible, people say it's 365 days, it's 365 times. I've heard it's about 300. I've not done the research for myself, I'm not a theologian, but it's over 300 and maybe under 365. But bottom line, almost as many days as there are in the year, it is commanded, do not fear. It comes up over and over again because when you do fear, that is when you now make poor decisions. It's negative faith, right? But having fear, it doesn't say do not have, you know, the fact that you have fear, in fact, the fact that it says it all the time is proof that it's expected that you will have fear.
Right.
It's just do not do fear. Don't act in fear. Don't let fear make your decisions for you. So fear to me it's not a big, it's like, okay, I have fear.
Oh my
I have fear all the time. Yeah, I actually have fear all the time.
That's good.
It's not a big deal.
My next question was, what fears have you had to overcome?
So,
and how did you overcome them?
I have little fears that I deal with every day. So I speak professionally for a living, among other things that I do. And so even when I go in front, as many times as I've been in front of audiences, sometimes I have like the butterflies. And for me, overcoming it is accepting it. So I don't resist it. And sometimes I'll even say, like, if I can't get control of it, I'll even say, so I'm feeling a little fearful right now. And just by calling it by name, it's like it loses its power.
Right.
Now, the big fears that I've had to overcome are things like starting my business. And, what kept me locked for 16 years, right? And so I said, for 16 years, right, as I was working as a pharmacist, I lived with fear. I did fear, but I had episodes of faith. So it's the episodes of faith that I would try one thing, I'd do this. During those 16 years, I wrote my first novel, The Mrs. Club, right? That was an episode of faith. And the reason why it's an episode, it wasn't sustainable. I did it, and then I walked away from it. I did it, and then I walked away from it. So I kept trying things and I would back off. So the difference, though, when you have a lifestyle of faith is that you might have episodes of fear, but you have a lifestyle of faith, so you're sustainable. You're doing things actively. How did I overcome? Well, for me, I started with a decision. It's a decision. I think for everything in life, it's that decision and committing to the decision. So I committed more to the decision to do this, to live a life of purpose, than the fear that was overwhelming me, right? So I feel the fear, but I'm so committed. And so for me, accountability is one of the ways I really trap myself into success. Okay. So like the first Refresh conference,
yeah.
If I hadn't announced it publicly,
you wouldn't have done it.
I probably wouldn't have done it. When it got hard, I might have pulled back. But because I announced it publicly,
and who's there liking the Facebook post?
There's no how. I must do it. And so I had no choice. So sometimes you get that proactive accountability. So you get people on board to help you stay focused. You announce it, you set deadlines, you do all those things to make sure that you follow through. And you commit to those things more than you commit to the feeling of fear.
Because I wanted to ask you as well, like how, when you say you commit to purpose, you committed to a lifestyle of faith. What exactly did you do? Because that sounds a little bit abstract. You get me? Like, how do you commit? Because by the time you wake up in the morning, you have an episode of fear, and you wake up in the morning, you see the same things again that will shake you, like the storms. How do you stay on that line of, okay, I'm going to be faithful today? I know you mentioned accountability. Any other strategies?
So even before accountability, you have to have goals. So a lot of times we have ideas and we have dreams, but we don't do the hard work of turning those into goals. And then we don't do the next step of having the goals, turning those goals into actual action, a plan. So I want to do this, I can't tell you how many people say, I want to do this, I want to do this. And okay, so what is the plan? Let's sit down and do the plan. Then I'll come, let's talk later. I'll do it later. That's the unsexy work. So first you have to do the unsexy work of actually, and I'm a creative, I'm a true creative. And I used to be someone, I don't want structure. But I tell you, without structure, you can't move forward. I say it's like God is pouring, it's like, consider faith and grace and all His blessings and all the opportunities that you can have like a tap that God has opened and water is flowing. But because you don't have a container, which is structure, there's nothing to hold it. The water just comes and it falls all over the place, right? But when you do the work of creating a structure, then you can contain something,
right?
And you actually begin to see it grow and rise. So it's important that you have the structure. What are the goals? So you set your goals, and you have your targets. And so when I get up, even though I don't feel like doing it, I am, oh my gosh, hey, like can we be real?
Yes, please be real.
Okay, because even for me, and I'm a confident woman, but even for me, you have those days when you're like, hey, look at what's happening? What is going on? The outfit you got to wear, it's like, what's happened to my Spanx? Everything had just fallen apart. You just don't feel good.
Yeah.
But so a lot of women actually pull away.
At that point.
They don't show up
because
just from physical.
Yeah.
Am I lying?
You're not, absolutely not.
It's true, right?
Absolutely not.
Like the hair won't work today, so then you don't show up at all. And so because I have those days as well. But because I know this is the target, and then I'm accountable, so this has to happen. So even when I have events, you were at our high tea. Let me tell you, I felt like a hot mess that day. But you
didn't look it.
No, I see. That's to me. I wasn't feeling myself. But I'm not, again, so this is the other thing. Get over yourself. I wasn't feeling myself, but I'm not there for me. So that's about being committed to purpose. So I focus on, okay, what are my targets? And then more importantly, at the end of the day, when I get to meet my maker, and he asks me what I did, what will I say I did? I'll say, oh Lord, I wasn't able to do this because that day, my spouse wasn't working. What to do? And I've been fortunate enough that I get feedback about the impact that I've had with people, and I have them on my wall. So on my office, in my home office, I have a wall with all of my vision board is up there, and then I have letters people have written to me sometimes. And there was a particular letter that a woman had written to me, and she said to me how she had attended one of my events. And I had done a lot of speaking and all that. And she said when she came, she was suicidal. And this has happened more than once. I've actually had a number of people say this. And I know.
Even the last one, the high tea as well. There's the lady that
said that?
Yeah.
Ah.
The one that came with someone and talking about how she, lost the people.
Yeah, so she was in a difficult place. Yeah, and because you don't know what people come for.
Yeah.
And you don't know what they come with.
Exactly.
And so your gift is not for you.
It's for other people.
It's for other people. And so for me, recognizing that it's not about me. It's not about how I feel, how I look, it's not about that. It is that I'm responsible, I'm a vessel, and I'm responsible to translate what has been put inside of me and push it out so that others can be blessed. I'm blessed to be a blesser. And I want to be able to answer that when the time comes, I can say yes. I want to get that well done.
Faithful servant.
Yeah.
Okay, so my question was, I'm happy that you talked about, just stepping out and just sink or swim, because a lot of people feel like if they don't have that perfect idea yet, they can't start. And I'm talking about myself personally. I know there was a time that I was supposed to help people in recruitment selection, help them with resume and CV and everything. That's because I had experience, previous work experience working in that department, like HR, I've been in HR manager and all that, and also educational experience. But I refused to take that opportunity because I thought at that point in time I didn't have a job. So who am I to tell other people how to get a job? Do you see what I mean? Like,
I tend to do that.
Yeah, because I feel like a lot of women are like, okay, what qualifies me?
I'm an imposter.
Yeah, what qualifies me to talk to people about this when I'm struggling with this? But it's something that I think one of the videos when I was researching you, and
you were stalking me? No, just teasing. No, you should research.
Of course, yes. Oh, I researched you. I even dreamt about you this morning.
Hey, we've gone far.
I know. Something talked about I've lost my question of thoughts now.
Yes. About struggle.
Yeah, about struggle was like your test is your
testimony.
Your testimony. The thing you're struggling with is what you're supposed to help people through as well. So for that woman who is having that imposter syndrome as to, I'm not here yet and I'm trying to get people to where I'm not. How do you not talk yourself out of your purpose? Because that could actually be your purpose.
Absolutely. A lot of times it is.
Yeah, so how do you talk yourself out of that?
I think it comes again down to authenticity as well. So I think one of the reasons why a lot of women are afraid to do that is because they want to be perfect before they do the work. But you're not called to be perfect. You're called to do the work. No matter how it is you present, no matter what you're going through, your work. So for me, for example, there's no day that, first of all, it doesn't matter what it looks like on social media.
Right.
And I'm very positive and that is who I am. But I also have my own struggles. And there are days that are tough. But I can literally have a day that's really tough. I told someone sent me a message saying, oh, you're so wise. And I said, wisdom is my spiritual gift, and it is. It's not only my spiritual gift, it's also one of my skill sets that I have honed, insight, and I'm very analytical, and I spend a lot of time learning, and so I may have some nuggets of that.
Yeah.
And then I have a spiritual gift of wisdom. But as a human being, me myself, I'm not wise, because I can say something very profound,
Right.
that has impact, and then I'll go and do something in my own life. I'm like, you're not the same person that just did that. But I've made peace with that, because I understand that the work that I have to do, the things that I bring to the table, again, I see myself very much as a vessel. A lot of times people get confused, and they think that they are the message. I wish I could take credit for that. But I cannot.
I'm hearing it for the first time, so.
But let me tell you where I got it. Years ago, there was a Broadway show called Jelly's Last Jam. I love musicals, I love jazz, I love all of that. And so this was one of my favorite musicals, and I had the soundtrack. And it was about Jelly Roll Morton, who was one of the grandfathers of jazz, you would say, back then. But there was a phrase they said, and he came to believe that the message was him. So he was, the story was all about his downfall, because he was very arrogant. And, I never forgot that jazz was the message, but he got it into his mind that he was jazz, he was the message. And a lot of times we do that, and it's a very dangerous place, and the world will help you do it. They will gurify you. So I'm very careful, don't gurify me, I'm not a guru. This is not about, because it's a dangerous place to be, because what happens when your humanity presents itself?
Right.
And a lot of times that's what destroys people.
Absolutely, that's what it means, yeah.
Your humanity presents itself.
Or you forget that everyone is a human being,
yes,
right?
You cease to be a human being because you're a guru to others, especially if you've built your business model on
around yourself as well.
That you must be perfect. And so you end up doing that. And when you do that, then you set yourself up. So publicly you're successful, and there are people that are this way, where publicly it looks like they're doing the daggone thing, right? But privately they're struggling, they're broken.
And that's where you come in.
Well, when it takes someone to be able to honestly say that, because sometimes you can't. Just this morning, a woman who is funny because she posted on her Instagram about coming to my session. She just posted it. And I was reflecting on the first time I became aware of who she was. I had read an article that was featuring her in one of the major magazines in Nigeria years ago. And I remember thinking, and she was so put together and everything. And she is a powerhouse in her own right. And so this morning she wrote, and I thought, God is so awesome, because I think it was, maybe you wanted me to talk about that. And she said, this is what really jumped out at me. She said, I put away my ITK, or I let go of ITK, which is, Nigerians, I too know, right? I put away the hat of I know it all, because she's someone who teaches. She's someone who is a leader, who has, she's someone who would normally be the person at the front of the room.
Right.
But she chose to sit. In fact, I remember when she said she's coming, I said, okay. Okay. And, for her to, and I thought that was very profound. And this is something that I do as well, and have learned, that you have to have the ability to receive, no matter how great and how wise you are. You have to have the ability to know that you are just, anything you have, any good, you're just divinity that is wrapped up in humanity. That anything that comes out is the divinity in me. And, and that's critical, so that you can maintain your sanity, your authenticity, your joy, you can laugh. So the day you look crazy,
you're okay with it.
You're okay with it. You can't, because if you make a mistake, you'll kill yourself. If you make a mistake, hey,
right.
Life goes on.
Wow, it's powerful.
Amen.
Amen. All right, so if you could travel back 25 years, what would you do differently?
5 years.
Let's think about 10 years, then 10 and then 5, if there's a difference.
10. What would I do differently? I would start, like I said, some of the things I talked about earlier. I would have started, I would have taken risks. I would certainly take more risks. I would be more honest about my abilities. I'd be willing to stand in my greatness, because I think that was a big challenge for me. The same thing for 5 years ago. I would be willing to own my power. I think I would have had a hard time with that. And I didn't, there's a shift that happened once I evolved into that space and became unapologetic about it. Like, I can do this. I bring this to the table. In as much as I know these are all the other weaknesses I had, but I was able to, it changed, the energy shifted for me, and I would do that. 5 years ago, I would have been more willing to negotiate, know my own worth, you know, stand in my power and my value.
Yeah. And identifying your strength is, for some people, might be a lifelong process, or, you know, I don't know, based on experiences. So
Not in the reflective leadership circle.
Oh,
No.
what can I say about that?
Gotta plug it.
You know, because like growing up experiences, background, educational, you know, network and things like that can really affect people. Like, so today they might think their strength might be wisdom, or tomorrow they might think is, I don't know, discernment, you know, things like that. But it's really important to know what the strength is for you to be able to hone that skill.
Absolutely.
So how would you help a woman who is trying to figure out what her strength is?
So I think, and that's why I said not in the RLC, which is, I told you guys that I founded this organization. It's a network, it's a coaching community. And one of the big things that we focus on is self-awareness and really self-discovery. Constantly, and it's a constant thing. Because you have to think about the skills you gain. It's not, you don't gain all your skills once and then stop gaining. You're constantly gaining new skills. And you're constantly, like where I am today, in 5 years, I expect to be doing some other things. So there's skills I'm getting along the way that I may not have recognized yet, which is why it's important to have a practice of introspection and discovery, so that you can constantly discover, then design. So my framework is discovery and then design. So constantly in that state of discovery. So we focus a lot on that, on discovering your gifts, discovering your purpose, discovering, I have something called your feminine leadership archetypes. And I help people go through. I have actually a course in it. So in the RLC we literally have courses.
Okay.
There, you know, you go, and so someone might ask me a question in the community. How do I do it? I'm like, have you watched that master class? You need to go watch that class. And then come back and send me an email and let's discuss it. And we have lives every week. Because again, like you said, the world is not designed for you to know your strengths. In fact, it's designed for you not to know your strengths, because if you don't know what you do really well, then you can easily be blocked and fit into this machine and use it up until you're done, and then you're thrown out and someone else is plucked and put into that machine. It's not designed for you to be unique. It's designed for you to be interchangeable. When you become unique, you're actually problematic because you no longer fit.
Yeah.
So it's not designed, so you have to do, and it's also not designed for you to know your worth. You get constant messaging every day that you're not enough, particularly women. So you have to then combat that on the other side, right? So you have to be able to do and it takes really just taking the time. I have people do a couple of things, like for example, I say do a resume, a life resume. Don't do a resume for a job, do a resume for you. You know how when you write a resume, you're like, this is the role, and you write down, this is what I did, and you're writing for the job, and you're looking, what's the job description, and you're like, tweaking it accordingly. Take the job description out, write a resume for you. What did I accomplish? What did I do? And you begin to see your skills show up, right? I remember I went for a job interview years and years ago. I didn't get the job, by the way. I'll just tell you right up front, and I'll tell you why. So they asked me a question. It was a director position, and I'd done some management, but I'd never done never got to that point. And so they asked me a question. I think maybe deep down inside, because I remember walking into the building, and it was so dark, and I just thought, if I had to come here every day, I had been wrestling with myself. So I think maybe my ambivalence showed in the way I responded. So they asked me a question. They said, "What qualifies you to be a director?" And I said, "Potty training." I said, and all of them sat up like, what do you mean? I said, have you ever sat with a non-compliant person filled with ego, that's what 2-year-olds are, and try to get them to do something that is not comfortable, they don't want to do. Anyone who successfully accomplishes that has the ability to be a director. And they all laughed, and some of the women in the room, they started clapping. At the end, when I left the room, one of the women walked me and she said, "Thank you for one of the most entertaining interviews we've had. I can tell you're not going to get the job, but I don't think you're a good fit for this. I think you should look for something far more interesting."
Wow.
You know, but I bring that up to say you don't realize your skills. That even someone who's been at home for 6 years, for 10, or never worked, you think you don't have skills, but there's skills you have gained that translate across sectors. So it's really up to you to determine, this is my skill, and this is how I can fit this need. The thing about women, you know, men typically, they'll look at a job description, and if they have 3 things on there and there's 10, they don't have 7, they will apply to the job. Women will look at 7, but they don't have 3, and they'll say they can apply. So we have a way of counting ourselves out. But you have, and truly, it is you saying, "I'm available, I can do this," and people believe you. So that's the shift. You have to then say, you know, "I can do this, I have this skill, this is this," you maybe not say potty training, but I could have said, "I've worked with egocentric," I could have framed it in a way that was still true,
right,
and answered the question. So that's one of the things. Do a life resume. Write down these things. Really sit with it, and don't be shy about it. Because a lot of times this false humility holds us back. Get clear. These are my skills. I do this really well. You know, I can impact people. People write you letters. People send you texts. Stella, that thing you did. Oh, you know, you really helped me. And they're telling you what you do really well.
But sometimes,
but you don't take it down.
Yeah.
Yeah. You don't. Yeah. You just treat it as nothing. It's your diamonds. You know, I tell a story all the time. I don't know, you probably heard me tell this story. Ever since I discovered this thing, it was mind-blowing to me. Life-changing. I've told this story so many times because it really was like, wow. And it's the story of the Eureka Diamond. And the Eureka Diamond was the first diamond discovered in South Africa. And it was discovered by a young boy, Erasmus is his name, right? On a farming family, poor family, working family. And he thought it was a stone, just a shiny stone. He was playing with it. His mother thought it was a shiny stone. The neighbor came and saw the stone. Immediately the neighbor knew there was something special about the stone, and he offered to buy the stone. The mother said, "Why? It's just a stone." And she gave it to the neighbor. The neighbor now took the stone, sent it to his friend who was a gemologist. That friend now identified it as a diamond, paid the neighbor for the stone.
Wow.
Sold the stone. So the stone has been sold several times over. It turned out to be a 40-carat diamond.
Oh, wow.
Erasmus and his family never received any money for it. And just think about how many of us are doing that in our lives. There are things that you're doing. You're casting it, you're just doing it. People even offer to pay you. You're like, not just cake.
I can just do it for free for you.
What is it now? It's not just hair. What is it now? It's not just a business plan. You know, you just, things that really you could sit down and monetize. And look at the businesses around you. Look at, I was just driving there, I saw Arden's juice. Someone could be making smoothies.
I know, right?
Right? And you're like, and you're not treating it as what it is. So this is the other thing. So one, you must understand your value. But the other thing is to recognize that you are worth too much to devalue yourself by not investing in yourself. So this is the other side. So there's some people that want to, they have a hard time recognizing their value. There's some that do recognize their value, but they're not willing to do the work and not willing to make the sacrifices or to invest in honing their craft. I can guarantee you that yes, I have had certain abilities and I've had them for years, but it's until I started honing my craft that I was able to command a higher level of value for it. And that is, that's how it goes. So that diamond that I talked about in its raw form, it did not command as much as it commands today because it's been cut and polished and all the other things that happen to diamonds. So the other thing is, are you willing to arise out of your raw form and get to a place of higher value? And this is the critical thing that we need to begin to do. And that's one of the reasons why I created the LLC, to provide a platform for that. Where every day, like once you leave here, I have to teach a class. And we're talking about responsiveness, which seems so minimal. Like people who are used to not responding to emails and not responding to texts and, I'll get to it when I get to it, and you never get to it, and you don't know how much it's costing you. and that attitude. And I heard something a few weeks ago that has just, again, another
life-changing moment.
It says practice makes permanent. Not perfect, but permanent. And I was like, that is so true. And I always, how you do one thing is how you do everything. So the more you practice being unresponsive, the important things will come by your desk, and you'll miss it. And so so every week I have classes in our community. Oh, and it's like live chat sessions where I'm teaching different success mindset strategies to remind, so that you're adding layers of value to yourself.
Wow. So many deep things. One thing I definitely took from what you said so far is we can't ignore the little things. People, what you say, someone might be like, oh, so do I have to really go deep down and do the work? But really, for you to get to that level of value, to hone those skills you have, to know your strengths are, you really have to do the work. And I think a lot of us actually run away from the work.
Yeah, we do. We want it easy.
Yeah, that's why we can't get to that level of mastery. That's why we don't put value to the skills that we think is little. Making cake or making hair, doing beads. We don't see it as valuable. So
yeah, and we just want to do it easy. Yeah, the easy way out. And also we think of work as hustle, and they're two separate things. I work hard, but I do not grind. So I don't hustle, hashtag grind.
Hashtag hustle, babe.
I'm not the struggle is real. I'm not inside that one. Because
inside that one.
And count me out. Because it's not meant to be like that. You're meant to work. You are called to work. You must work. Even in the word it says it. You work, you eat. It's important. It says the laborer is worthy of his wages. So your work is important. Work has value. Right? But we have attached we have a mindset of, and when you see people hustling, of course, who wants to hustle? So you're like, please, I beg. Let me just be making my small rice here.
I know,
because you're seeing someone who's doing it, trying to do it, as we would say, trying to do it, hot. But that's when you're trying to do it in your own strength. But when you understand, like I feel, one of my winning strategies is tapping into grace. And in fact, somebody had a beef, for lack of a better term, they were irritated with me because she had asked me, how did I achieve one or two things? And I told her, well, I honestly have to say it was by His grace. And she felt it was a cop-out, and I wasn't trying to, either I was trying to hide the strategy, the technique, or she said, you're either trying to hide the technique or you haven't done the work to really demystify it. And I said, I've actually done some of the work, and I can tell you some of the techniques that, but I'm telling you the ultimate technique is because you are willing to accept that we live in a world that is governed by both the physical and the spiritual. And because you're unwilling to accept that, you're missing out on a key technique. I'm telling you that grace is a technique. And you don't hear. And when someone says it, it sounds as if they're over-spiritualized, but I tell you, the world we live in, just because you don't understand it doesn't mean it's not real. Before they knew what gravity was, the world was still governed by gravity. So just because you don't understand it or it's not language you're accustomed to doesn't mean it's not real.
Right.
And so when you can learn how to connect to that, it changes the way you work. So I don't work like a mad person. Prayer is a strategy. It's a real strategy. There are testimonies I can give you of things that have happened for me that it can only be, and I tell you, I did what I needed to do, boom, 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 but the gap between what I was able to do and what I was able to accomplish, it is grace that bridged that gap. And the way I was able to access grace was faith, prayer, having a spiritual core. And, I'm not one to deny that. I'm not going to pretend that doesn't exist. It does. And in many other places, at least in my business and the space that I'm in, I see people using, just because they're not Christians, they use other spiritual, I'm not talking about some Nigerians don't go far, come on. But when people, there's language that they use that is very acceptable in today's world, but it's still the same thing. They're attaching faith, they're taking God out of it. They're connecting to some of these things that are operating at a plane that we're not yet aware of all the time. But it's there.
Yeah, I'm just, wondering like how a woman will feel if the question she asks is like, how do I stay ahead of my competition? And then tell her grace. But really, I think it is because there's like it's so easy to get overwhelmed when there's so many other people, so many other coaches, so many other event planners, so many other people trying to empower women, But really, it's grace. Even though you get carried with the crowd, right? And then you need to hustle because you're trying to stay ahead of the next person who's doing something similar to you. But if you're content with who you are, your core, not the value you bring, and grace is great, faith is great, but you also have the works and strategies in place. The combination of everything should be able to, make you sleep in peace.
Yes, and it gives you an extra oomph. So you still have to do the work. There's no question about it. To me, it's like the difference between something that's battery operated and then something that you have a cord that can plug into the source, the wall, right? When you plug it into the source, you're still doing the work, but you're plugged into a great electricity source.
Right.
But people, because they're uncomfortable or intellectual, like someone told me, again, you have to make your peace. I've made my peace. I'm a woman of faith. It works for me. Whatever you want to say is no problem. But for me, I've seen it work.
Yeah.
I've seen too much in my life to discount it. And I remember someone sort of mocking me, like implying that I'm less intellectual because I have faith. And I was like, okay, no problem, do what works for you. But I tell you, I've seen people, so a battery eventually will run down. Like you said, it's that piece. If you plug into the source, you're not going to run down. And you're actually going to, sometimes a battery, when it starts getting, those old school boom boxes, and the battery starts dying, the music, music starts drawing out. And that's sometimes what's happening. The output you're getting, the productivity, your level is dropping because you're trying to do it in your own strength. And again, so for me, the thing that I do every day, I read my Bible morning and night. I meditate on it, and it's a practice that I have. And I don't do it again to feel morally anything. I do it because to me it is life. I believe the words. I believe them to be true. And they are true. It's just that we haven't necessarily caught up to all of it. So, for example, when the word says, as a man thinketh, so is he. We now know, we didn't know this before because we didn't have the science to back it up. But now with brain imaging, we now know that your thoughts actually change your brain. The physicality of your brain. Is that not exactly the same thing? So we don't understand all of it. But I operate with that faith and that knowledge. This is true. That I can dictate certain things. I can call that which is not as if it is. And I see it come to be true because, again, there are other things as well. So I'm not just standing and calling.
Right.
There's an action that goes along with it. But I tell you, there's a power to getting your mind and your spirit aligned first, and then acting in concert with it. Because I was that same person. I remember I had years ago a friend who was very faith-driven at the time. I remember I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. She said, you should ask God what you're here. I was like, please, 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 can I have some practical strategies? I was exactly like that. And it was a mistake because for years I tried to figure it out. Now this same person had always operated that way. And there were things that I didn't, favor is not a fake, it's not 419. Favor is real. Favor is real, we just don't understand it. And honestly, for me, as a woman of faith, that's I'm a very practical person. If we practicalize it, and it's practical actually, there's some simple, if you just sit down and read and understand, like, hey, really? Okay, let me apply this.
Right.
Let me apply that. And I tell you, honestly, don't take it's not about being morally superior. There's nothing to do with that. Just apply it as if someone gave you a strategy and see if it, test it and see if it's not real. Test it and see. It's just for me, that's what I found.
Interesting. I wanted to ask you, what book has inspired you? But I know number one comes with the Bible.
That is it. I mean, what book has inspired? That is it. Because there are too many.
There are too many, yeah.
Where will I start from? There's so many there. So I have literally over 1,000 books. Correct. I've given away probably about 1,000. I had to stop buying physical books because it was getting to be ridiculous. And now I have tons in my Kindle. But I have novels. I read constantly novels, and there's so many, like, of course, the Toni Morrisons, the Maya Angelou's, there's just so many. I don't even know where to start from. And I diverse, Amy Tan, even the chicklets, the kind of books that I write.
Yeah.
They have all contributed because they're people that use words as a paintbrush, and they make the world more vibrant and begin to show you things that you didn't see before. And then there's of course the people, the self-help type books, the personal development, the Simon Sinek, Start With Why, the Seth Godin. There's so many people. One of the books that I was just talking about in the RLC the other day was Turning Pro by Stephen Pressfield. I'm constantly reading. We're constantly reading. We're reading next month in the RLC Malcolm Gladwell's David and Goliath. So there's so many. It's impossible to say which inspired me. It's like, which is inspiring you today?
Okay.
That's the question. Right.
So, and you're also an author as well, and I know you also like poetry.
I do poetry.
So how have you been able to balance it all? Do you believe in the concept of work-life balance?
Yes. Not necessarily. Balance implies that you have to hold this many here and hold this many here. I believe in the concept of flow. And there's actually a great book. Flow. So flow is, there's a book called Flow, brought forth by the psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi. I can never pronounce his name properly, it's Polish. And the idea of flow is that you are meaningfully engaged in something. And if you're meaningfully engaged in something, work that challenges you to some degree, but it's not work that you have to necessarily do, but work that you are doing because you enjoy it to some degree, that it actually energizes you. And so for me, things like writing is flow for me. So I don't have to write. Like, I have work writing, but my novels, like I have a new novel coming up, I don't have to write it. But it energizes me, and I find that once I'm done with that, I'm actually more energetic about other things. And this is like a hobby. So a hobby is something that you're engaged in. It's a little bit more, it's a little challenging. It can't be just like totally easy. It has to be a little challenging for you. It causes you to have more energy. And a lot of times we don't realize the value of these things. They actually make you more productive. So some people kind of like restrict themselves, and they have these long to-do lists, and so much so that they don't actually have any room for flow or even pleasure. So another thing that we know, that's research is showing that having more pleasure in your life actually causes you to be more productive and more successful. But again, we tend to limit ourselves with these things because we are like, oh, we'll do that on vacation.
Right.
Or, I'm too busy.
I have to work.
I'm so focused. I'm so busy. Hashtag hustle. Hashtag grind. But actually it makes you less productive. And so this idea of work-life balance, I've discovered, for me, I don't worry about that. So I do a couple of things, and we talked about it. So we have retreats every year. This year we went to Arizona. And it was something that we talked about with the women that came, that I taught at our retreat. So creating a strategy that will allow you to be successful, a success strategy, sustainable success strategy, right? And one of them is, one, having regular pleasure breaks in your life and in your day. So every day, what little things can I do that bring me pleasure? Every day, what little things can I do that are flow-like? So I might write a little every day. So reading poetry for me, like I enjoy that. I act it out. I'm a little dramatic. Do you, right? Those things are both pleasure and flow, all right? So there are times when I'm trying to do some work and I can't like get it together. I'm stuck, or I'm frustrated, or I'm not productive. I'll go and bring out the sewing machine, and I'm self-taught, and I'll just sew. And I find that it's like unlocking, again, like that flow. So putting those things in place then helps you create a system that allows you to be sustainable for a long time.
Wow, what's the best piece of advice you've been given?
Best piece of advice. Focus on yourself.
Focus on yourself. Stay in your lane.
Stay Stay in your lane. Yeah, that was my husband. When I wanted to tell her, he didn't mean it like that. She meant, get off me and focus on you. But it is really good advice. Focus on yourself because, Gandhi said, be the change you want to see. And often whenever we want change, we're constantly looking externally. It's always everyone else's fault. But,
or how other people are changing, they're trying to change to their own change.
Fix them. When you stop focusing on them and focus on you and let me be the change starts with me, then that is when you're more powerful and more impactful.
Okay. Is there any fear that you're working on now?
Yeah, of course. So there's always up-leveling. You're always up-leveling. Gay Hendricks, another author, psychologist as well, has a book called The Big Leap. And in it he talks about the upper limit. And he talks about how we all have these upper limits. And once you hit your upper limit, then you start to self-sabotage, you start not to show up and things like that. And so the challenge is always, are you raising your upper limit? So for me, of course, in order to evolve, I have to break through that upper limit. And so there's always, this awareness that just because you've broken through once doesn't mean there's not another one. So for me, there's a next level fear of now having a team, and so it's no longer making money just for you, but it's paying people's salaries.
Absolutely.
And then what next after that, and what next after that, and what next after that.
So what is the next step for a fresh awakening, a fresh leadership circle? What plans do we have in the future? Because I want this place to be the first place that we hear it. Is that when it happens?
I don't know what you're going to hear.
I can be like hashtag you heard it here first.
Well, the RLC is growing. We have been growing. It's been amazing because we just started doing our marketing campaign, launched our first video just literally a few days ago.
Beautiful.
And that's one of a series that we're doing. And so marketing is part of the plan, growing the membership. The RLC will be one of the major areas that I do the coaching, the business to consumer coaching that I do. And then I am growing the other aspects of my business, which is the organizational work and some of the corporate training and leadership development with corporations and organizations. So that's the area that I'm working on. And then flow stuff. Right. My flow projects are Aristocrat Lives is coming out by the grace of God in January. Y'all forgive me, I'm coming. And I have a few other creative projects that we have been working on behind the scenes that hopefully 2018, 2019 will allow to manifest.
Okay. So for the woman doing it afraid, one advice for her?
Keep doing it.
Keep doing it.
Don't stop. When you fall down, get back up. Expect to fall down and plan to get back up. Don't start. I always say this. Don't stop starting.
Don't stop starting.
Don't stop starting. Because you might give up today. You quit on Friday. Start on Monday. Go back to work on Monday.
Okay. I don't know about you, but I have learned, I have heard, experienced. One more last question. What keeps you refreshed? Because you're glowing. You're always glowing. Like nothing is out of place.
Story.
I'm serious. I'm not next to you.
Oh, so you want the name of the makeup?
Okay, we can do that offline. So it's for me, and then you pay me to get that information.
No, I do genuinely believe. I want to have good genes, so I'm not gonna lie. But good living.
Pleasure.
I try not to be too stressed. I eat living things. I do enjoy my bread and my sweets. I have those, but I literally have greens with every meal. I have tons of greens, and I've noticed that the more greens I have, the more my skin reports. Plenty of water, constantly hydrated with tea, and good living, faith, grace.
Good living, faith, grace, better greens. Great. All right. Thank you so much, Ekene, for this opportunity. I've had a blast, and looking forward to the comments and feedback from this video as well. So please feel free to comment, ask your questions. I'm going to put all her details as well after this video. Thank you again.
Thank you. I had a great time. Thank you.
Bye.